And you know me well.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Ladies Power Lunch. I have a wonderful guest with me today, Ryan Hall. So I've been on his show and he's been on my show, and he's just a really great friend to the show. And I'm really excited to share him again with you because he has some new things going on that I think you need to know about. So welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining. Ryan, thanks for coming back on the show. It means so much. And I have to start handing out awards for the people who come back and keep wowing our audience. And definitely you're going to be at the front of the line for getting one of
Yeah,
those.
yeah. Well, thank you, and especially since this is Ladies Power Lunch, and I'm not exactly a lady, so. But
Yeah, but you
you
know
know,
what,
I've always,
Ladies
I've
Power
always
Lunch
been a
is
supporter.
all
Yeah.
about certainly supporting women and envisioning the idea where women can grow in business. But let's face it, some of the biggest supporters of women are men. And so we have quite a few outstanding men, just amazing humans who are part of our Ladies Power Lunch community, who continue to just be in service of this idea that women can grow business and can do amazing things in the world. So we
Oh,
welcome you with just open arms. Thank you so much for joining. Now, for those of the people who are new to this podcast or who are just tuning in to Ladies Power Lunch for the first time and they've never met you, so sorry that you missed out. So far, so glad that we're getting a chance to introduce Ryan to you. Can you share, Ryan, who you are and what exactly it is that you're doing in the world?
I'd be happy to. I'm Ryan Hall, as she says. I'm an author, novelist. I've been in a couple of collaborative book projects with a certain mutual friend of ours. Got some good stuff coming in that regard as well. But I'm an author, podcaster. V has been I think a two-time guest on my podcast so far, and it won't be the last either. And I'm also uh, a life and creativity coach, just really really up to big things in the world and supporting big people and finding their just royal voice in the world. So I'm truly grateful to be here and truly grateful to be speaking to y'all here today.
I'm so glad to have you on the show. That's really, really great. So, I love to ask this question of our guests. I feel like it gives us some really juicy, really outstanding answers, and it really gives us a nice jumping off point for a conversation. So, Ryan, I might have asked you this before, but I want a new answer. I want something new, exciting, and different. If you had the opportunity to just wrap your arms around the world and share some knowledge that could really help us to live a better life, to be better at the things that we're doing in our lives, what would that be, Ryan?
I love that question. And I don't think you've actually asked me that before, but I really do love that question. What comes to mind is if I could just really wrap my arms around the world and tell them, everybody that's listening to this right now, everybody really within the sound of my voice, you've got a just an incredibly powerful story. You've got an incredibly beautiful story, and you've got a voice that can really shake the foundation of the world,
Mm.
really create some change in the world, create change in your own world. You know, there's a great I I'm I'm blanking on the author of this, but he created the sphere of influence concept. Um, and if you think about it, everybody, the things that they say, the voice that they have in the world, let's just say that you know five people. I mean, everybody knows more than five people, but just kind of roll with me here. That the five people that you know, you speak to them, and they speak each to five people that they know. The spheres of influence are getting bigger and bigger until the things that you say are affecting the entire world. Changing the entire world, affecting the entire world really begins by owning who you are and owning your voice. And to answer your question, that is what I would tell the world, that you've got a voice and a story that could really shake the foundation of the world.
Well, obviously, I agree with that because, as you know, I have our upcoming anthology book for Ladies Power Lunch that's coming out on October 17th, 18th, and 19th, and we'll be hosting our Ladies Power Lunch Summit during that time as well. And it's called aptly Be the Beacon because I believe what you're talking about. I believe in that so fundamentally that we're all beacons and that we're all shining our lights out. I can almost see this picture in my mind of all these little lights just connecting all over the planet and just making the world a brighter and better place. So I feel like that's really a great message to share with the world. Own your voice, have your voice be heard. Has this always been something that you have been able to embrace fully, Ryan, or have you ever had any times when you've been, might I say, a reluctant beacon?
There have been many a reluctant beacon. I may have to use that, but there have definitely been times in my life when I have been a reluctant beacon. In fact, this embracing this real ownership of my own voice, I think has been a pretty recent phenomenon in my life, probably within the last 5 years or so, because like I haven't always believed that the things that I say, and when I say the things that I say, I mean the things that I write, the message that I put out into the world, I haven't always believed that that really matters. That I haven't always believed that one man's voice or one beacon's voice can really change the world. I haven't always believed that. But the older that I've gotten, the more that I can, and really the more that I've started seeing with just more than my eyes, the more that I think that, I don't know where I was going with this, but the more that I think that, the more that I can see just how much people listen to the things that I say, that people really follow the things that I say, the more that I've started to embrace that, the more that I've started to put my voice on a bigger and bigger loudspeaker. It's a really powerful thing to be with. And I think really in my core, I still see myself as that shy and meek kid sitting in the back of the class, not wanting the teacher to call on him. But I know that without a doubt that I've always been this guy. It's just I've always kept it hidden under kept my light hidden under a bushel, so to speak.
Yeah. And I feel like, Ryan, you're not alone. And even those of us who we have a platform and we're speaking out all the time, there are even still parts of ourselves that we keep really hidden. There's some fear, there's some hesitation there. We might not all be living our lives with that full authenticity and that full transparency and that fully expressed beacon that we are meant to be, that we could be. So, what are some of the do's and don'ts that you would recommend for somebody who's watching our podcast who might be like you and might be like me, who, you know, we say things and we come out once in a while and we speak our truth, but we're not really sure that our words are hitting. I have to tell you, sometimes I'm wondering, am I podcasting into the void? You know, is anybody out there when I put my blog post up? It can get a little demoralizing if you don't feel like you're a super influencer and you have 500,000 followers. So what should we be doing? What advice do you have for us?
That is a phenomenal question. I think the first thing that really comes to mind is when you're speaking your truth, when you're speaking out, when you're really putting your truth in your voice on that loudspeaker, pay attention to how your body feels. Pay attention to how your body feels, because if you're speaking from your neck, right? If you're speaking from your throat, you may be a little bit more timid. You may be a little bit more uneasy. There might not be some authenticity there. There might not be the full authenticity there. But if you're speaking from your chest, from your heart, and just really allowing your voice to just project, and again, I say voice as whatever you speak in the world. But if you allow your voice, if you speak from the heart and really allow your voice to just really shine out, I think that's the first step, is just really find what, really find that passion, that comfort level of just speaking from your heart. And another thing that comes to mind, and this is more of, I think this is more of a personal experience of mine.
Sure.
But when you slow down, slow your mind down, that's when your heart can really come out, really speak out, and really shine forth. I remember a call that I had with my old coach a couple years ago, and just unknowingly, I had come into this call speaking very slowly. I thought it was my Southern charm coming out, but it was reality. I feel like that was my truth coming out. That when I slowed my mind down and started allowing my words to come out a little bit slower, I think that's when my truth really showed out. And my coach told me that was the most authentic she had ever seen me in the 2+ years that we worked together. So just to really answer your question, those are just a couple of quick tips that come to mind. Is just pay attention to how your body feels, and also pay attention to how quick your mind is working. Because if your mind is working quicker than what you really want to say, then you might not come across as real and as truthful as you might want to be.
I love those responses. One of the things that, and I appreciate too that you have made that distinction, that when you're talking about voice, you're not just talking about your speaking voice, but whatever medium you are choosing to communicate your message with the world. For example, I love being a writer, and you do too. And a lot of the times that's the way that our voices come through. But it's so important to, I think what you're suggesting, and correct me if I'm wrong, is to let go of the overthinking and maybe the ego manifestation, and to let what really wants to come out flow from your heart. I have also had similar experiences where I've a lot of you might know I used to do a lot more speaking engagements prior to COVID, like actually getting on physical stages and speaking to people. Since
I think a
COVID,
lot of us did. Yeah.
not so much, but I can remember so many times when I've hopped off stage, and if you ask me what I just talked about, I couldn't really give you a word for word. But I've also been told that those are probably the times when I have been most dynamic, because I wasn't overthinking things, and I wasn't letting too much. I'm going to say too much because we're still all evolving, and there's always an opportunity for us to remove ego from the equation. But, on those days when ego wasn't playing as big a role, those are the days when people would say, oh my goodness, that was meaningful to me. That touched my heart in a way. And it doesn't mean that those are the days when I was particularly verbose. It probably just means that those were the days when the heart connection that needed to happen were made. So I totally get that. That makes perfect sense to me. Do you have some advice for us about, when we're really reaching into this idea of being the beacon and shining our light and letting our voice be heard in any way that we choose to share our voice? Do you have some things that you've seen going on that you're thinking, we should really check that at the door? That's not really the best way to go about shining your light.
The first thing that comes to mind is, again, check in with your body.
Mhm.
If you feel like you're resisting what you really want to say, maybe take a look at what the message is behind it. Like I'll give you a great example. When I was a young kid, like 10, 11
Once
years old,
upon a time.
once upon a time back when dinosaurs roamed the earth. But yes, when I was a little kid, I participated in this school play, in this church play. I played Moses, um, complete with the fake beard and the bathrobe
Oh.
and everything like that. But everybody who was in this play um, needed a microphone to be able to project their voice to the audience. But during tech rehearsal, before we actually went on, this was an Easter production, but during a tech rehearsal, I stepped up to the mic, used the mic, and my voice projected so much that it just shook the entire sound system. So, but it just came naturally to me. It always has come naturally to me. Stuffing my voice down hasn't come naturally to me. So, again, I say that because if you find that you're resisting what you really want to say, that may be your ego getting in the way. That may be that survival mechanism getting in the way. Check the message that you really want to share, and just, I guess, discover your passion behind it, discover your real, like, true meaning behind that. So yeah, again, just check in with your body, check in with what you're really wanting to say.
That's wonderful. And thanks for sharing that little story. I just had a full
My pleasure.
visual of you as this cute little kid, dressed up as Moses. That was very entertaining for me. So thank you. Um, yeah, I totally agree with that. And I can even think of examples in my own life where I've had situations where you check in with your body and you feel like, yeah, maybe this isn't what I need to be sharing, or maybe there's something else that needs to be coming out, and just giving the message an opportunity to be what it wants to be. In our Ladies Power Lunch book club right now, we are reading this book by Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. And he talks a lot about being the watcher and just observing, sort of like you're watching a movie, the thoughts that are going on in your head and observing how you're feeling in our body, how you're feeling in your body. And it's just so interesting to me that we rush through life, and I count myself among the many who do this. We rush through life so quickly that we don't really pay attention to, what is my body saying? What are my thoughts? Are those thoughts positive, quote unquote, thoughts, or are those thoughts of fear and lack? Where exactly is my head right now? And can I be an observer of my emotional state and perhaps present the message that I'm sharing with the world in a way that is in a way that the world will hear it in the very best way. So it's really, really an interesting idea to be able to be that watcher, be the observer, really tune in to what you're thinking, what your body's saying, and does that really match up with the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Yeah, and I love that analogy. And one that I like to use is, if you can if you can see your thoughts, if you can see yourself, like if you were just a security camera in the corner of a room somewhere, if you can just totally remove yourself from that, what would you really like? How would you really see yourself in that moment?
That was me for all of you watching and listening on the podcast. That was just me looking around the room for all the security cameras. There are no security cameras.
Has somebody been bugging your office?
I know. We need to check that out. So funny. So, our intention for us to share our voice and be the beacon, which is, like I said, the theme of our upcoming Ladies Power Lunch Anthology book, and also our Ladies Power Lunch Summit, October 17th and 18th and 19th. That's when we're going to be having that whole full launch. But the idea is being the beacon and sharing your voice and sharing your light. And I'm so excited, Ryan, that you share this particular message with us today. It feels so synchronous. It feels like a big synchronicity that this is the message you want to share as we're going right into our launch of our beautiful baby book. Do you have any resources that you would share with us to help us to be better at sharing our voice with the world?
Absolutely. A certain podcast that I have created and hosted. It's called the Solar Powered Podcast. SOUL-R, a pun on my name. But what I feature was with the Solar Powered Podcast are heart-centered, soulful people stories, people who have overcome adversity, people who have created magic in their life just because they say so. I've had a lot of authors on the podcast. I've had a couple musicians on the podcast. I've had a particular chiropractor on the podcast a couple times. How you doing, Doc? But it's, it was something that I created during the pandemic that has really taken off. And the way that it's going, I should be hitting episode 100 by the end of the year. So I'm
Congratulations.
incredibly excited. I think I've got some huge plans for what I want to do with this podcast. Some really fascinating guests that I want to have on the podcast. And yeah, just solar powered. It's available on Apple, Spotify, Anchor, really wherever you can find your podcast. And I'm sure you'll include links to it.
Yes, absolutely. You can drop those links in the show notes so that you can also connect with Ryan's podcast. Any other resources that you think that we should really tune into?
Honestly, not as of right now. However, I am partnering with a mutual friend of ours, the lovely Elizabeth Hill, working on doing a pretty fascinating virtual presentation on November the 1st, simply called How to Write a Book. We're going to be inviting people from the fiction space, from the personal development space, from the historical fiction space, memoirs, just really getting great perspectives on just what it means to sit down, share your voice, share your vision, share your wisdom in that book form. And it's going to be on November the 1st.
See, I love this. And what I love about this, both you sharing about your podcast and the sorts of guests that you bring on, and also you talking about your upcoming workshop that you and our dear friend Elizabeth Hill, who is one of the main publishers that we use for the Ladies Power Lunch books. What I love is that you're reminding us that our message that we're meant to share with the world doesn't have to look a certain way. It really, really doesn't. You could bring your message to the world through music. You could bring your message to the world through your art. You could bring your message to the world through writing romantic historical fiction. It doesn't matter. It's just that you let your voice be heard. I am enamored with this. Really, really find this so exciting. What
Yes.
else do you have coming up?
Speaking of writing and speaking of books, and honestly speaking of music, I have a new novel coming out in November.
Ooh.
Just a matter of a few weeks. It's called Hello Again, and it's a just a quick synopsis of it. My my story follows a man named Mikey, everybody calls him. He's he's around my age, early 40s, recently married, got a child on the way, originally from a small town in Alabama, not unlike yours truly, but he also has a very fascinating job. He is a network late night TV host.
Oh,
Now, early in the book, he gets a bit of news from back home that his mother, who had been fighting cancer for a long time, finally passes away. When he and his wife go down to visit for the funeral, they see the state that his dad is in. Now, once upon a time, his father, Jimmy Holiday, was the hottest blues guitarist, not named Dwayne Allman or Eric Clapton, but has fallen into depression and addiction. And it's really a story about a father and son bonding over what both makes them great: the comedy, being a dad, and also through music. So, hello again. I'm incredibly excited about it. It's going to be coming out here very shortly. Probably, I want to get it out early November. So,
wow. That's awesome. That's awesome. That's really, really awesome. I just wanted to show, you probably saw me messing about with my phone. Hang on. There it is. So these are the books that are on my list of things to read. And you'll probably notice there's one in there called Written in Stone. So these books, they're
yes,
just waiting. There's also a romantic historical fiction book in there as well. These books are all waiting for me to go on vacation so I can sit back, relax, and have a nice read. So I'm actually looking forward to reading your book that came out some time ago, Written in Stone. And
yes.
then I have to add to my list of things to read your new book, Hello Again. So you realize Dr. Shepherd needs a vacation because she's got a lot of books to read.
Yeah, when the good doctor has a backlog in her Kindle app, yeah, she needs a vacation. The girl needs a
It's
beach
time.
somewhere.
It's
Yes.
time. It's time. But I'm so excited that, you are just so multifaceted and sharing so much of your voice with folks, sharing through your podcast, sharing through your coaching with your clients, sharing through your novels, sharing through other types of books that you do. For example, the book that we were co-authors on some time ago called The Great Pause, which was lessons and wisdom from COVID-19. And that was a tremendous project just to work on, to be able to make the amazing connections that we were able to make, but also a tremendous opportunity for us to share our voices during a time that was probably one of the hardest times that I have faced personally. So really, really appreciate having you in our circle. Before we wrap, though, any final words, Ryan, that you want to share with us?
Yes. I think the thing that I want to leave your listeners with is this: is that everybody within the sound of my voice, there is a light inside of you that can blind the world. That can absolutely blind the world. The only thing you need to do is find the switch and turn it on.
Switch it on, guys. And, I feel like that just dovetails really, really nicely to give me another opportunity to invite y'all to join us for our Be the Beacon Summit. It's going to be 2 days jam-packed with 20 co-authors of our amazing book called Be the Beacon. It's going to be speaking to the reluctant beacon. It's going to be speaking to the beacon who's that spark, who is ready to set the world on fire. It's going to be speaking to the bonfire, that person who is already ablaze, but they might be ablaze for a while and so maybe need a little stoking here or there. There is also going to be an opportunity for us to speak to the lighthouse, that individual, that human who is just a beacon of light, and what he or she needs to link arms with others and cast a wider net of beautiful bright light into the world. It's going to be 2 days of just hands-on workshop style facilitations. That's what we're going to be doing, because the type of person that I am is that I learn a little bit differently. If I have hands on it, I will learn. If I have somebody speaking at me, it's going to go in one ear and out the other. And so when we come up with these events, we try to make sure that they're hands on, so that when you leave our summit on Wednesday and go back to the real world, you will be able to actually integrate, apply, and actually get started with making this a part of your life. So I invite y'all are 100% invited to attend with us at our Ladies Power Lunch Grow Smarter Be the Beacon Summit, October 18th and 19th. And if you want tickets for that, the link's going to be in the show note. It's growsmarternotharder.com. Because think about it. You want this life that's ease and flow, right? You don't want to be working harder. So obviously my website's going to be growsmarternotharder.com. Yeah.
Gotta stay on brand. Yeah,
Gotta
of
stay
course.
on brand. Awesome. Ryan, it's been such a pleasure talking to you. It is always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And I look forward to seeing you on the next show. Bye, everybody.
Bye, y'all.